In that moment when I was in the trunk, I heard, "Car, you better fight and you better get out of here." That was enough for me to just say, okay, I have to go, or else I'm gonna die. I just went down to the parking garage. It was some levels down. And as soon as I got through the door, I noticed that there was a car full of guys. As soon as I looked at them, they looked at me, and I knew that I was suddenly the center of their attention. As I started running towards my car, they started running towards me, and there was one big guy, and he just ran up and just punched me in the face. I was panicking, jumped up, and that's when they started to pick me up. Each one of them had a limb, and they were carrying me over towards my car. So I was kicking them, scratching them, punching, doing everything that I could. I was wiggling around. I was just doing everything that my mom had taught me to do if anyone ever tried to kidnap me. They carried me to my car and popped the trunk. A moment of panic, but I realized I still had my phone, and it happened to flip open. And when it did that, the light automatically came on, and it was able to kind of illuminate my trunk. And I realized that most new cars have a trunk release button. So I popped it, tried to hop out. They all came rushing back, punched me in the face, and I felt a splash in my face. It smelled kind of like ammonia, and it was burning really badly. So I was panicking, like, oh my goodness, I can't see, I'm blind. And he took my phone away and stuffed me back into the trunk. Turns out that it was acid. It had burned through my winter coat, my pants, everything in my trunk was burned. And I started to cry, but I think my tears ended up helping me because it ended up flushing the acid out of my eyes. My mom passed away in February of 2005, and she was a Chicago police officer for about 14 years. And I honestly, I heard her voice. In that moment when I was in the trunk, I heard, "Car, you better fight and you better get out of here." That was enough for me to just say, okay, I have to go, or else I'm gonna die. I decided to pop the trunk again, but I kept it closed as tightly as I could because the other guys had jumped into a car that was trailing my car. So I kept it closed, and I knew it took exactly 4 revolutions down the ramp. I just held tight, and I knew that every time we were going around, I kind of went to the right. So I just counted and waited. And as soon as I saw the light, I jumped out of the trunk. I actually rolled into the other car, and the other car immediately pumped the brakes and stopped. So I could hear it go, "Rrr." That's when I knew I wasn't hit because the bumper was like right above my head. I jumped up, and I realized that one of my neighbors happened to be walking either in or out of the building, and I screamed and asked him for help. The cars just took off. And I ran inside, and I explained to them, I'm like, please call 911. Some men just tried to kill me and kidnap me, help me. There was no physical evidence to convict any of them on the kidnapping and the auto theft, the assault, all of these things that they did to me. I think that these people targeted me because I was dating someone who was not the person that I thought he was, and, later found out that he had an extensive criminal record, and police have told me that he may have, done something to these people to make them really upset. And instead of them going after him, they went after the closest person to him. I moved back to the suburbs where my dad was living, and that's where I felt safest. Since none of them had been arrested, I was afraid that something else might happen to me, and unfortunately, something else did happen. I noticed a guy and two girls coming into the lobby, and I looked at the guy, and he was the same person who had punched me in the face and tried to kill me. I called the detectives I'd been working with, and they actually had me come in a week later to identify him. And I did. When the police went to serve him his warrant and arrest him, he was caught throwing drugs over his balcony window. There was no physical evidence to connect him to what had happened to me. So that was a huge disappointment for me. As I left her apartment, I started walking towards my car. I think it was like 10 o'clock at night, so there was no one else on this residential street. Then I noticed, just like a few cars away from mine, there were two women standing outside. And again, they just didn't look like they belonged there. I started running towards my car. They started running towards me. I had on flip-flops that day, unfortunately. I made it to my car, and I had gotten in, but one of the women, she pulled out a gun. So she's trying to get her hand with the gun into my car, and I'm using one hand to try and figure out how to, start my car, and the other to slam her hand with the gun in my car door. And then that's when suddenly I felt a huge splash into my face. Same smell, same burn. It had happened all over again. So I ran quickly up the stairs into my cousin's house. I kept feeling like I was going blind almost, but what happened was the acid got into my eyes again, and my contact had almost melted onto my eye. I remember my cousin calling 911, and I kept saying, those girls. These were the same two women who were in the apartment building walking into the lobby with that guy. My attacker had been arrested about a month after he first attacked me. And after the second attack, when I saw the two women, I knew, they know each other somehow, some way, so he must have sent them after me. After you've been through something like that, you suddenly have a new identity once you're burned. I don't just have physical scars, I obviously have a lot of emotional scars too from this. I'm careful about who I allow to come into my life, and it's just taken me a long time to even move out on my own again and just trust people the same. I survived because I listened to that little voice inside of me that told me I had to get away and I had to fight back.